America in this society, they understand that. They understand that we as a people, we lead by example. You understand? For example, if Nicki Minaj, if Beyonce, and all these entertainers, if they dress a certain way, or they put a certain image out with those entertainers, right? They know that the masses of the people, right? The many other people, they'll follow. Exactly. We lead by example. Go ahead and take your questions. It's cool. But what we're trying to show you as well, did you get the information? What we got to mention as well, sis, too, is just know that if you don't remember anything that you're doing over today, remember that you're an Israelite.
That's right.
Remember that you're an Israelite of the tribe of Judah. Okay? Right. And Christ looked just like you. The Mother Mary looked just like you. That's your true God-given nationality. That's right. Hey, brother, real quick, let me put that book right now. I want to show you something. It's so-called Puerto Rican, right? I'm going to show you with some historical facts. Give me on Joshua chapter 14, verse 1. More proof, because the brother, he mentioned something about the Frenches earlier, right? When Christopher Columbus, John Cortez, Fernando Hernandez, when they all came to the supposed New World, right? They examined the Indians, the Boricua and the Taino Indians and stuff, and they had scribes, which is like somebody that records stuff in writing, right? And they described certain features that they had, right? So what I'm gonna show you is, this is a book right here, it's called Lost Tribes of Promised Land, right? And there's an account where your ancient forefathers were being recorded by the Spaniards, all right? And they actually took your people, brought them back to Spain, taught them Spanish, brought them back to the Americas so they could find gold, you understand? And that was like the first ever big gold rush that was known on this side of the earth, you understand? So a lot of times, read this real quick, actually, right here. No, right here. I'm gonna show you. This book, I didn't write this book. My name is not Ronald Sanders, all right? My name is Tazuan Israel. I don't know who this man is. I think he's a so-called white man, all right? Nation of Egypt. Anyway, we didn't write this book. But there are certain accounts where historians or professors, scholars, right? They'll write things down for themselves to know, all right? So we got our hands on one of these books. Check this out. Let me see. Shem, I want you to read Isaiah. Yeah, chapter 50, verse 30 and 50. I'm sure we went over it. What I want to show you is that it's actually more proof that your forefathers are Israel than the so-called black, Haitian, and Jamaican. All right? I say so-called because that's not our God-given name. But there's more historical facts that you are the Israelites more than us. All right? Yeah, Jeremiah 50, verse 30. Jeremiah. All right, so I'm going to read you in this book about the history. Read this part right here.
This is the book of Lost Tribes and Promised Land, page 364.
Now, hold on now. Big celebration just passed, Thanksgiving, right? And basically that was the commemoration or the celebration of the death of a lot of people. So here we go. Let's read some history on that right there.
Waving a banner high in the air,
Tone it down some.
the Indian guide soon was greeted by a puff of smoke.
So I'm gonna paint the picture. There was an Indian, and this a man right here. His name is Montezemos, right? And he was on a boat, right, and on this side of the earth, right? And he saw an Indian waving a banner in the air, like this way, okay? Read on, come on.
Far beyond the other bank of the river, in response to his signal, the two men waited. Eventually, a canoe appeared.
Canoe appeared from the water, right there.
Bearing 3 men and a woman.
It had 3 men in it and a woman in the canoe, right there.
All of them Indians.
They were supposed Indians. The word Indians comes from the root word indios, means savage or slave. But y'all were not savages or slaves because you had gold all in your clothing. You had wealth in your clothing. That's how they knew that there was gold in the land, because you had it. You wasn't wearing it like, you know how nowadays we put it in our teeth or we put it as earrings. We had it woven in our clothing. You understand? It was like we were wearing it because we're royalty. Your royalty. Like your blood will take you back to Jerusalem, the temple, God, royalty. That's why we say a lot, you're the son of God, because you are. You're royalty. You're the son of the Creator. You know, come on.
to the place where Francisco and Montesinos were standing at the water's edge.
Right, so they were standing at Montezimos and a couple men with them. They were standing at the water's edge and they saw Indians coming, 3 Indians and a woman in the canoe. Read on, come on.
The woman got off and spoke to Francisco in an Indian tongue that Montesinos could not understand.
So now Montezimos was a Spaniard, and the Indians were speaking a tongue that they couldn't understand, the Spaniards couldn't understand. So what the normal education of society is that the Spanish, the Puerto Ricans, the Cubans, all those that live in South America, they already knew Spanish like from the get-go. But no, what you have to understand is that before you were forced to learn Spanish, you spoke Hebrew.
Right.
You spoke Hebrew. Right. A lot of the dialect of the so-called Indians, or the Taino and Boricua Indians, right? A lot of their dialect, back on the island too, I speak to a lot of so-called Puerto Rican brothers. They say a lot of it is like Hebrew mixed with like Spanish and English and everything. I don't know if you can attest to that, but I speak to him a lot about that. Read on, come on.
Although he could perceive that he was being identified in the conversation.
So he didn't know what language they were saying, but the Indians were speaking to him like derogatory, I guess you could say, right? Read on, come on.
She then turned to her male companions.
She turned to her friend. Visualize I'm the woman, but I'm not the woman. I'm just saying, turned to a male companion, and what she said?
To explain the situation.
Right.
Upon hearing her words, they rose and went over to Montesinos, and to his utter astonishment, said, Shemaiah.
This is what he says out of his mouth. Now, the first word, Shemaiah, is a Hebrew word. It means obey, all right, or hear, or listen to, or hear to, right? But read what the Indians spoke. Read this.
Shema Yi Roel Adonai El Ohinu.
Now it's going to translate what it said. Now the Indians spoke in a Hebrew tongue. So how was it that I thought the Indians or the native Indians or the Seminole Indians, the ones that had, they said, what you got to understand is that there's a blackout on this earth, or a washing of who the true people of Israel are today. Right? This world don't want you to know who the true children of God are, specifically through historical and biblical facts.
Bring it out.
So they tell you that everybody's Israel. Right. But when you look up history, it'll show you exactly who is the Israelites. Right. Like for example, what's saying it right here is that the Indians did not know Spanish at all. They originally kept the feast days in the Bible. You understand? Like the tabernacles. It was one of their feast days, right? Where the tabernacles is when we as Israel, we dwelt in tents or booths. That was one of the main housing tools that the Indians used, right? They dealt in tents, right? Come on, keep reading real quick. So this man spoke Hebrew. This is the interpretation of it. Read on.
Adonai Ehud. Hear, O Israel.
This is what he was saying. Hear, O Israel. Read.
The Lord our God, the Lord is one.
The Lord our God, the Lord is one. That's what he said in that Hebrew tongue. The Indian now. Now keep going. Read on.
They had recited in Hebrew the fundamental creed of Judaism.
Now the reason why Christopher Columbus knew to come over here on the Eastern Hemisphere was because he read our history.
Right.
And they also came to the Americas, what you want to call it, with Hebrew interpreters, all right? So that's how they knew exactly what the Indian was saying. So they're thinking to themselves, how is it that these Indians knew and recited something in Hebrew? What is the other part of that right there? The fundamental credo?
The fundamental credo of Judaism.
Because when you look on the map, turn this thing around real quick. I just want to get a little geographic real quick. Okay, so this right here is Israel, right? Up above here is Spain, England, and so on and so forth. Now the Spaniards, the English gave the Spaniards, Christopher Columbus, permission to come over here to the New World. They sponsored him, right? So when this stuff was happening, they came over and they already, Christopher Columbus read this. Give me a second, Evans, real quick. Hold what you got, because I want to keep this. This is what Christopher Columbus, he read in our Bible.
The book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 13, verse 40.
Bring it out. Your history. Check this out.
Those are the 10 tribes, Sarah the king, whom Salmanasseh the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the water.
So what you have to focus on right now is speaking of the 10 tribes, okay? Read.
And so came they into another land, but they took this counsel among themselves.
So they came, the 10 tribes came into another land. The 10 tribes are these tribes right here. I'm going to show you what. Not Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, but these right here are the 10 tribes. Dan was also mixed amongst them, okay? The tribe of Dan, all right? Because if you read, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Dan was amongst them at this time, but they got mixed in with the other tribes, all right? So keep reading, come on.
That they would leave the multitude of the heathen.
So turn it back around on that map. I wasn't done with it. The multitude of the heathen was everybody here on the Western Hemisphere, right? So the 10 tribes said, we're going to leave the multitude of the heathen right here and what?
And go forth into another country.
And we're going to go forth into another country. Because this land, all this was inhabited already by a lot of people.
Right.
The so-called Puerto Ricans, the so-called Cubans, the so-called Dominicans, Guatemalans, Panamanians, the so-called Aztec, Mayan, Inca Indians, the so-called Mexicans, the so-called Chileans, Salvadorian, Colombian, Uruguay. Those originated indigenous people of Israel, they said, I'm going to come here and go where?
To go forth into another country.
To another country where?
Where mankind never dwelt.
Read that part again correctly.
Where never mankind dwelt.
It says, where never mankind dwelt. So how did Christopher Columbus discover a land that was first inhabited by your forefathers?
Bring it out.
By your forefathers.
Bring it out.
That's important to know.
Shalom, Israel. I'm Elder Nathaniel, Israel United in Christ. YouTube likes to shut our channels down, as some of you have noticed, ever so often. Subscribing to join IUIC will assure you will always stay connected to our YouTube accounts. We want to do our best to make sure this truth gets out. Please click and join our subscriber YouTube channel called Join IUIC to stay linked to all of our videos. So again, please make sure you subscribe to this Join IUIC channel to get your latest updates on all our YouTube channels. Shalom.